Hello! Welcome to my series where I review books that have been randomly selected off of my Harlequin bookshelf by a random wheel. If you don't know me, my name is Danny. I love to read romance books. That's kind of my thing, I guess. And I firmly believe that Harlequin books kind of have a bad rap, just as far as like romance books go. And I'm determined to try to find some of the good ones, I guess. We have found some. We found a couple good ones. We read Butterfly Swords. That one was pretty good. Actually, the first one I read was decent as well. But I've also read some stinkers. We may as well just get into it. If you're interested in more of these books, you can check out my other ones that I've done. I've got a couple of them now. I've also done a book recap for the books that I read between October and November. That is all the stuff that I read when I'm not reading these Harlequin books, basically. Alright, I guess we may as well just get into it. The book that was selected for me this time around was Playing by the Marriage Rules by Fiona Brand. Fiona Brand is a prolific Harlequin author, with her first book actually being published in 1999. And the most recent book was actually this book, which was published in 2022. It looks like she writes a lot of contemporary romances, and there are some romantic suspense books in there as well. This book seems like it has an ex's marriage of convenience thing going on. Judging by the blurb, it looks like the dude needs to get married to inherit some money.
Will you marry me? What?
And from the sounds of it, like, he marries his ex, who was his wedding planner for the wedding, and the bride didn't show up or something. I'm basically writing my script while I'm reading the book, so when I'm saying stuff now, it's what I was thinking in the moment when I was writing my script. So this is what I was writing before I'd even started the book. So, I, now doing this recording, know the answers to all of my questions that I might have in my script. However, I'm gonna read it like I was writing it out. The first thing I noticed when I opened this book is actually the acknowledgments at the front of the book. They are a Bible verse. There's nothing thanking family or friends, just a dedication to Jesus.
Wow.
Have you met my nephew? His name is Jesus.
This leaves me kind of apprehensive about this book in general, but this is also a Harlequin Desire line, which I, at the time, thought was their spicy line of books, so I'm kind of confused. I will later find out that this was not the case, and we will talk about that when it comes up. Married by Midnight. That's the only way businessman and reformed playboy Damon Wyatt can secure his empire. When his convenient bride never arrives, he makes a marriage deal with wedding planner Jenna Beaumont, who happens to be his way too tempting ex. If they play by the rules, their temporary arrangement will be over and done soon, but their undeniable attraction and very real connection break every last rule in the contract. This book opens by telling us exactly what the setup is. Damon Wyatt is the heir to his uncle. His uncle was an oil tycoon and is super stupid rich.
Stupid rich, emphasis on stupid.
Damon was basically adopted by him to escape his terrible father's marriage, and he basically was trained as the guy who's going to take over this oil conglomerate. But there's a stipulation in his uncle's will that he has to basically get married, or else he'll like lose all of his inheritance. I didn't know you could do that. I guess I don't know if you can make a stipulation like that in a will, but you know, it is what it is.
You know, it is what it is, Daddy-o.
If he doesn't get married, basically his entire inheritance will go to a farmer in Florida who's like a little nobody. He never comes up again after this. Damon has basically spent like the last year of his life trying to get like this whole will thing overturned, but it didn't work. His uncle has always wanted him to marry, but seeing the havoc that it caused, like during his childhood between his father and I don't even think I don't know if she's his mom or the lady that his father eventually married. Either way, he's got trauma. He's got childhood trauma regards to marriage, and he swore basically that he was never gonna get married. His uncle, I guess, had other plans for him. He's currently at a wedding venue that is being picked out. His intended bride has hired a family member to plan the whole event, but actually it turns out that this family is Jenna Beaumont, who is somebody that Damon apparently had a very brief fling with 2 months ago before he decided to Contract a controllable, convenient bride. His words, according to the book, that is what he wanted. It seems like Damon and Jenna, the wedding planner, they have some kind of history, and he's known her for a while. It actually ends up being like 10 years or something like that, 7 to 10 years. He says Jenna was the gorgeous, pampered daughter of one of the oldest, most prestigious families in Texas, a southern debutante who might take a walk on the wild side with him, but when it came to marriage, she would always follow her family's proud tradition and marry money. The kind of girl whom, when he'd had little more than a truck in his saddle, and the sort of pass that made wealthy people cross to the other side of the road to avoid him, he shouldn't have gone near, but he had made the mistake of doing that not once, but 3 times.
And he would have done it again and again and again until somebody stopped him.
Their most recent encounter was 2 months ago, actually when he was at a restaurant for a business meeting and he'd seen her on a date with some other high-class lawyer guy who was trying to take her home at the end of the date. Damon intervened, and instead he ended up going home with her. Damon describes it as a destructive mismatch with a spoiled heiress who is a carbon copy of the mistake that his father had made. Ouch. And I guess, like, after they broke up, he was spotted out with somebody else, like, almost immediately after, with, like, basically the woman he had intended to do this contract with. And the news of this whole affair with this other lady, I guess affair, not in the cheating sense, just, like, they were in a relationship or something, got out, and his, and I quote the book here, sedate 30-something bride left him, and telling him that she had only been in it for the money. First, I have to say that I hate how he keeps talking about how he wants to marry a docile and sedate and convenient and low-key woman. I guess because he wants this to be like a super low-key affair. He doesn't want to deal with any drama or any of the emotional abuse that he had experienced from the socialite that his father had married, but basically to me it just reeks of like that sort of misogynistic, like, submissive wife is a good wife type of mindset that you get with these kinds of books. I'm hoping I'm hoping that Jenna proves him wrong, and then doesn't just immediately fold into this like docile wifey sort of character. With 2 weeks to go to the marriage deadline, he has like basically found out his reputation is like run him through the mud over like this whole fling and everything that's been going on with Jenna and then with the other lady, and he's having a hard time finding somebody who's gonna marry him. He ends up reconnecting with basically the person who is actually Jenna's cousin, and she says she'll marry him to help him out. They're at a lodge. Damon is in the lodge that his uncle previously left him provisionally, I guess, by terms of the will, and he finds that basically like the big trophy room has been turned into a full-on wedding venue, and that's kind of like exactly the sort of thing he didn't want. He wanted his low-key, like, just sign the papers, get it over with, there's 2 witnesses, and that's it, sort of wedding deal. Damon just, like, wanted this whole wedding thing under the rug, and he didn't want to have to deal with any of this. Which is why he wants the wife who will just, like, basically leave him the hell alone for the 2 months that they're required to be married by the terms of this will. And then they'll just divorce, and that's it. It's over and done with. He's basically gonna get married, never see his bride, and then say goodbye in 2 months. He's with 2 other dudes at this lodge. One's named Caleb, who is his legal counsel, and then Mark, who is the manager of the lodge. Damon is handed a quote-unquote manifesto of wedding arrangements, and he's standing around just like looking at this room that has been decked floor to ceiling in like white flowers, and there's a whole ass wedding arc and everything. Staring at this room like this is the exact opposite of what I was going for.
I'm surrounded by so much white stuff. I'm like Al Pacino in the last scene of Scarface.
The book the book literally says that he broodingly put the pamphlet back into his pocket.
Oh, he's brooding in his room.
I've never heard broodingly ever be used to describe anybody. I had to actually go look up if this was a real word, and it is, I guess. I'll give her a pass on that, I guess, but I'm not happy about it.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
Damon and his crew of 2 dudes are asking where the bride is, and Damon says that she should have been actually in a small town nearby, staying with her family. I believe the small town is Ransom. And today's the wedding, and then tonight is basically the wedding deadline for the will. So he's cutting it really hella close for some reason. Gets married today. The deadline is midnight. One of the guys pulls out his phone. I think it was Caleb. I didn't actually write down which guy it was, but I'm assuming it's Caleb. You'll see why later. One of the dudes pulls out his phone. He shows pictures of the bachelorette party from the night before that were posted on social media, where Chloe's actually in Houston. Chloe is Jenna's cousin. Chloe is the one that Damon is going to marry to fulfill the contract. She is currently in Houston with her friends partying it up, and she is not in Ransom. Damon, again, reflects that he should have just found somebody older and more demure.
Very demure, very mindful.
Hate that. And that it had been a mistake to pick Chloe. And doubly so because he should have anticipated that she would hire her wedding planner cousin Jenna to plan their wedding. He also reflects that he definitely is still into Jenna. The POV switches to Jenna, who is pissed. She's Damon's ex, and 2.5 months ago she got together with him, but he was basically absent more than present in their relationship. She calls him unrecognizable compared to whom she had fallen for, an untamable bad boy. Nowadays, he was in designer suits and some very nice smelling cologne. She had been in the relationship with him thinking that he was the old Damon.
Hey, I can be a bad boy too if that's what gets you off.
But the new one had it basically felt like he was just trying to fit her into a schedule that was already full. He just didn't have time for her. And that wasn't what she wanted. He used to like sneak out of her apartment, because they were only together for like 2 weeks or something. He snuck out of her apartment in the dark, like before anybody else was awake, because he was like trying to avoid being seen, like it was a big secret. Only 4 days after their breakup, he was basically caught by the paparazzi in a relationship with another woman. And then after that, 2 weeks later, he was engaged to her cousin Chloe. Neither hell nor high water could stop her from attending Damon and Chloe's wedding because she knew for sure that neither of them were in love with each other. She has no idea about this will. She thinks it's just like the most random thing in the world was that they just decided to get married without really knowing each other. Basically, Jenna wants to know why they're getting married because it's obvious that neither of them are in love with each other, and Jenna considers herself and Chloe basically sisters. That she reflects on the last morning she actually had when she was with Damon, where she thought that maybe he was finally ready to make their relationship quote-unquote real, but he hadn't said anything. And she reflects that they've been in and out of relationships 3 times now. The first one, one night stand. The second one, a summer fling. And then the third one, the one from 2.5 months before. Their last, hookup, basically. They're together in secret for a brief period of time, and then he immediately moved on to another girlfriend, and then immediately moved on to his fiancée, Chloe, within, weeks. Okay, here is a quote from the book. In the history of the Montagues, that was her mother's side of the family. Getting dumped or even friend-zoned was almost unheard of, and just to be clear, her mother was a New Orleans Montague. They were all killer, good-looking, with piercing blue eyes and cheekbones to die for, straight noses and firm chins. They were so perfect, it was almost as if they landed from another planet. She hadn't. She'd been born right here in Ransom, but she had inherited her mother's good looks. Add in a tan and combine that with the toned body that had gone with her cheerleading background and gym addiction.
Gym, tanning, laundry. As you can see, now we're all fresh, tan, and jacked.
And she had been batting off men like flies for years, all except for Damon. Jenna is setting up the honeymoon suite for the newlyweds, but she's also super, super bitter and mad about it the whole time. She stops for a second and she looks out the window and she notes that they're on the cusp of a Category 2 hurricane sweeping in, and it's not really wedding weather. She also notes that Chloe told her to do up the wedding decorations. Why is that word so hard? In a way that she, aka Jenna, would have wanted the wedding to be done, which, you're getting married and you're telling Jenna to do up the wedding the way she wants it done. You can already see what's happening. You're 20 pages in, we can already see what's happening. There are no guests invited to the wedding. It is just Jenna to be Chloe's guest. She doesn't question why they need a whole wedding planner when there are no guests at this wedding. Jenna heads back to the hunting lodge and she finds Damon there with his 2 dudes. Hennessy, which I think is Mark Hennessy, he's the one who owns the lodge, and then Caleb, who is actually also an ex of Chloe's. So Chloe, who is Jenna's cousin, who is Damon's fiance of 2 weeks, is also exes with Caleb, who is Damon's legal counsel. This is like really messy. Damon sees Jenna when she enters the room and he's like, we need to talk. And then he just like grabs her by the arm and yanks her away. And Damon demands to know why she, Jenna, is here in the first place. Jenna demands to know why he is engaged to Chloe. She asks if Damon has been interested in Chloe since they were together, and he's like, no, absolutely not. After she brings up their previous relationship, he's like, I'm sorry if I hurt you, but like doesn't really do anything else other than that. Just like, yeah, sorry. Because she was like asking him about like why he decided on Chloe and he didn't have an answer for her and stuff like that. Jenna says she's surprised, but not angry.
I am not angry, I am just embarrassed.
About this whole thing. Jenna reflects that it was actually kind of shitty of her cousin to not only hook up with her ex, but then also ask her to do the wedding decoration at her ex's wedding. Jenna thinks that they, aka she and Damon, had been quote-unquote different with their quote-unquote lovemaking. I don't even know what that means.
It's written in plain English. What does it mean?
A, I hate that word. You already know this. B, I don't know what that means. Speaking of Chloe, they both wonder where she even is. She was in Houston for the bachelorette party and Damon is kind of like irritated about it. Jenna points out that women are allowed to have bachelor parties, thank you, and even though he abstained from having one himself, she can have one if she wants one. Damon starts asking whose idea the whole thing was, and then Jenna points out that she never would have decided to plan a wedding, like a whole wedding situation for X and her cousin, and Chloe is paying her for everything. Damon says that he was supposed to be paying for everything because the whole wedding was supposed to be a secret and nobody else was supposed to know about it, and it was just supposed to take place in Hennessy's office. So now Jenna is wondering why their wedding was supposed to be a secret. She asks, and Damon says that he doesn't want to have his private life aired out in the public news cycle. Jenna then considers that she could take this news to the gossip mag, which, I mean, fair, he's been kind of a dick. They bicker, and Damon goes like, look, about the marriage to Chloe. But then Jenna's phone goes off, because of course it does, and it interrupts him and kills like whatever he was about to say, which was probably telling her that he was going to marry Chloe or else he'd lose all his money. Some guy named Brad is on the line, and he's a lawyer that Jenna was basically trying to get to join her family's law firm because they need like a senior lawyer to take over until her brother is finished with law school, basically. Brad actually doesn't really want anything important from Jenna. He just wants some number from some bigwig that Jenna knows, but like Damon hears Jenna go like, hey Brad, and he steps in, and when she hangs up, he's like, you should get away from Brad Henderson, or whatever his name is. Because apparently he knows which Brad she was referring to. We find out later this is because her parents kept trying to set her up with this Brad. But it doesn't mention this in the book right now. It's just like a lot of context that we don't understand and talking around stuff. Jenna goes, luckily, I don't take your advice anymore. It's worth noting, though, that, like, Damon is once again written to be standing around broodingly.
She appreciates my brooding melancholy.
Staring out the window, because there's broodingly again. That's our second count of broodingly. Apparently, the conversation with Jenna was enough for Damon to know that Jenna still wants him. I suppose it's not a huge secret. Like, she's very clearly mad about the fact that her cousin was marrying him, and made sure to snark about how he was finally ready to commit. And Damon starts to reflect on how he first met Jenna. He had been a quarterback in college, and she was a cheerleader. Surprise! Who would have guessed?
Color me surprised.
Jenna and Damon, like, hook up. And then, like, almost immediately after, like, the next day or something, Damon gets a call from Jenna's dad, which is, like, one of those, like, don't you touch my daughter calls. Because, like, he's icky and poor, I guess. And they don't see each other again. And that was like 10 years ago. And then 7 years ago, Jenna's car apparently broke down and Damon like happened to drive by and he rescued her off the back road that she was stuck on. And then they hooked up again, and it was supposed to stay a secret until he actually caught Jenna out at like some lunch date with actually Brad. She was out with Brad. Her parents keep trying to set her up with Brad, so that's where that comes up. This is all like his exposition that's running through his head while he's staring broodingly out the window. He gets distracted from the exposition though by a knock on the door. He still hasn't seen or heard from his fiancée Chloe, but actually this is just Caleb coming in with the marriage contract again. Damon reflects that he hates marriage so much and how terrible his parents' marriage was, and he would rather be dragged backwards into stampeding cattle than ever be married. Alas, here he is.
Now, exactly how many cows are required for a stampede, Earl?
The contract, which he goes over briefly, even mentions like he and his wife are going to have separate meal times and separate bathroom times and separate sleeping arrangements. He basically wants nothing to do with her.
Now get out of the bathroom.
They look out the window together again, and the storm is still raging. He mentions that the lodge is isolated and there's only one road in or out. If the storm is bad enough, they could be stuck here for a couple days. He says he's heading into town to go get Chloe from the airport. Jenna is driving around picking up the wedding cake from Ransom and bringing in the wedding dress as well. And she's like struggling to drive back in the storm. She mentions how she's so used to guys like falling over themselves for her, and she's never denied. And the fact that Damon rejects her upsets her so much. I kind of hate how this book is like all about how pretty and successful and perfect she is. Like, girl, if guys are all over you and you're batting them off like flies and this one doesn't want you, just go get a different one. Get a different one. You don't need this one. This one's just gonna brood. She thinks of Brad, and she thinks about how she wants Brad to be a law firm partner, but she couldn't have asked earlier because Damon was standing over her broodingly.
Oh, stop brooding about it, man.
That's broodingly number 3, by the way. Jenna then crashes her SUV because she starts getting distracted thinking about Damon naked.
He is pretty dreamy, huh?
Jenna ends up in a ditch. She doesn't want to go to the front of the SUV, which is like brand new, by the way. They mentioned this is a brand new SUV because she doesn't want to ruin her expensive boots.
Are you fake crying? Stop fake crying. When you fake cry, you are so not hot.
She tries to climb out of the trunk of the car instead, but it doesn't work because apparently sliding into the ditch caused the trunk to buckle, I guess? Damon calls her, and this is a coincidence, by the way. He just happened to call her. He demands to know where Chloe is and if she's with her. And Jenna is like, no, why would she be with me? Her plane hasn't even landed yet. And then she tells Damon that actually I had a car accident. And Damon goes, what happened, babe? Because, like, that's not weird at all to call your ex and your future wife's cousin babe, I guess. She tells Damon she hydroplaned, and he's like, I'll be right there. And they stay on the phone while he's, like, putting his coat on and getting his car keys and getting in his car. And they're both silent the entire time. It makes note of this, that they're just both, like, sitting silently on the phone. Nobody's talking. And just, like, hanging out like that, I guess. Jenna notices that the water is rising very fast in the ditch she is in, and apparently she also has a very severe phobia of the water. This book just like, this is the first time this has come up now, but this is a phobia she apparently suffers from, is really bad. Any water, standing water, rushing water, the ocean, a pond, all of it. She panics and she goes back into the trunk and starts trying to kick it open again. The book mentions, again, that she goes to the gym regularly, and so she has super strong legs and she kicks the trunk of the car open just fine. It sure does like to make us know how perfect and strong and blonde she is. And oh, she's so skinny and she's so hot. Jenna notes that the wedding cake she picked up, the one she had listed on her wedding planning blog, is her favorite, but it's also been ruined. When she goes to check on the dress, she notices that it is a dress that is a size 4. However, pretty skinny cousin Chloe is only a size 2. How could Chloe have ordered the wrong dress? Wow. Just a coincidence that it's Jenna's size. What on earth could be going on? Damon shows up to be the hero. He carries Jenna out of her trunk and into his truck. And he tows her SUV out of the ditch that is rapidly filling up with water. He gives her a little band-aid because she has a boo-boo on her fingy. And then he grabs her by the back of the neck and he just kisses her. Like, just blam. The kiss gets interrupted by convenient phone call. Hard cut to Damon going into his room and having a cold shower. The narration reveals that he basically spent like the last time they were together, those 2 months, avoiding Jenna because he didn't want to get caught up in the whirlpool of desire that Jenna inspires, because apparently he could feel himself being obsessed about Jenna like his father was obsessed with his debutante wife, I guess.
And got like so obsessed with her.
This is such a weird comparison to make, but whatever. It also reveals that Jenna was like very interested in his new wealth, which is a weird thing to point out. She was very pushy about wanting to get him to invest in her family's law firm, and that when he was out of town, she went on a bunch of law dates and stuff with other lawyers to try to see if she could entice them to join the law firm. So, like, none of Jenna's narration mentions her, like, new interest now that he has money, which is, like, not great either, actually. They both sound kind of toxic, honestly. Damon is absolutely reflecting on how Jenna totally could have just died when she drove her car into the ditch with some water in it, even though, like, at no point was she in any danger of actual death. She could have got out of the car and, like, walked up the bank.
Oh my god, I almost died! No. I almost died! That was so scary, thank you.
It's okay. It's alright. It's alright.
It mentions that she didn't get out of the car because she didn't want to ruin her leather boots, her expensive leather boots. That's the only reason why she was still in the car and didn't get out. Damon decides that he is still interested in Jenna, and nothing has changed between them, and clearly she is still interested in him. He is resolved to get back into a relationship with Jenna after his marriage with Chloe is over. Because, you know, that's a great idea. You've divorced the cousin, now you can get back together with your ex. That's wonderful. Way to go, Damon. Caleb gets out of the bathroom, he checks on his phone, and he sees a missed call from Caleb. He calls him back, and Caleb says that he's now picked up Chloe and Ransom. But, he says that Chloe's changed her mind, and she's decided she does not want to get married. In fact, the only reason she agreed to marry Damon in the first place was because she had hoped that it would actually make Caleb jealous. She never intended on marrying Damon. Surprise. Shock. Aw. The bridge is out, nobody's coming or going because of the Category 2 hurricane. However, that also buys Damon a couple days to extend the deadline of needing to be married because there's like a clause in the contract where I guess he gets an extra couple days by act of God causing this disaster weather. I don't know, fuck. Doesn't make any sense. He doesn't use the 2 days anyway. Surprised he's gonna marry Jenna. Damon is like, alright, fine. That Chloe's not coming, I'll just marry Jenna. That's easy. Wow. Cut to Jenna getting out of her bath. She gets a call from Chloe who tells her that ultimately this was a trick to get Caleb back and she actually never planned on marrying Damon. And Caleb is in Ransom with her, and he's pissed because, you know, she kind of fucked his friend over by pretending to want to marry him. But he wants her back. They're going to get back together, and Chloe's also pregnant. And apparently it's Caleb's baby, and nobody knows but Jenna, because Chloe wanted to win Caleb back before she'd tell him that she was pregnant, which seems like kind of a shitty thing to do, I guess. Yay, we're back together. Also, surprise, I'm pregnant. She literally says, and I quote, "I wanted him to love me before he found out about our baby." Like, okay. Chloe tells Jenna the truth of why he was getting married in the first place. So basically she tells Jenna everything, that the money is part of the will. His uncle was making her do it, basically. If he wanted the inheritance, he had to get married. And Jenna is like, oh, that's a relief. I'm glad he didn't actually want to marry Chloe. Like, she couldn't have figured that out on her own, I guess. Chloe's like, why would I want to marry Damon? I'm in love with Caleb. Anyways, I know you're totally in love with him anyway. And since now I'm not going to do it, you should do it. Bye. And that's it. Jenna hangs up and that's it. She reflects that clearly Damon hadn't asked her when they were like together in their fling 2 months ago. Damon didn't ask her to fake marry him because he was afraid she would be like, okay, we're for realsies married now, when he was just looking for a fake married. Which, yeah, I mean, that tracks. That's exactly what happens, basically. Once again, Jenna reminds us that she is hot and sexy, and then she has the pick of every guy she wants, but Damon never wanted her, and it's just so baffling. Why wouldn't he want her? Everybody else does. She fell in love with him when she was just a cheerleader and he was a quarterback. Just, you know, in case we forgot, she mentions it again that she was a cheerleader and he was a quarterback. That's... how could we forget?
The dumb cheerleader flirting with the quarterback thing.
Damon calls Jenna over to meet him, and they head into the suite in the lodge, and he basically tells her what we already know. Damon has a proposition. He asks Jenna to marry him for 2 months to complete the contract, and in return he will ensure that she has a top-level lawyer to be the senior in her law firm for a minimum 3 years, while her brother finishes up his degree or whatever he's doing. Jenna mentions that he could have asked her a month ago when they were together, and he's like, no, this is a business arrangement and nothing more. It's a contract, not a marriage. And Jenna goes, well, what if we make love?
Monica and Chandler are making love.
I hate that. I hate that. Jenna reflects that basically she never really dates Damon when they're together. They just kind of like go right into doing it. That's it. That's their relationship. There's no courting. And she thinks of this marriage as like a potential 2-month window where Damon is forced to court her. So Jenna is like, yeah, okay, we can get married. Damon had like nothing to say about the lovemaking question, I guess, and Jenna reads the contract. It's super cut and dry. No eating together, no sharing the same room, basically. Different timetables, different bedrooms, zero intimacy. And Jenna's like, well, what if we break these rules? And Damon like doesn't answer because they get a convenient knock on the door. Both of them head down. Jenna goes to get dressed for the wedding. She chooses to wear a cocktail dress that she brought with her, but then she's like, why not? Why not wear the wedding dress that was conveniently bought in the wrong size that also happens to be my size, and a veil with a note with it, and oh, the note says, have a nice wedding, Jenna, and it's signed from Chloe. And then they go out to meet Damon, and he's waiting for her, like, at the wedding venue that she decorated up, and he's confused as to why, like, she's so dressed up for a marriage that is simply just signing a contract. And Jenna internally is thinking about how, like, she wants to use the next 2 months to convince Damon that they should be together for realsies.
They are doing it for real this time.
Jenna and Damon get together with the people who are their witnesses, which are like basically just two nondescript old people who are apparently notorious gossips, and then they proceed with the wedding. Jenna gets hella mad that there are no wedding rings being exchanged after the I do's, and she considers it absolutely barbaric that they would forego this wedding tradition where they're all business, strictly contract, marriage. I don't know why this is such a big deal for her. It doesn't make any sense in the moment either, honestly. They're at a little sad little party after their sad little wedding, and Jenna gets a call from Brad, and she leaves the room to go talk to him, and Damon comes out mad. He takes the phone right out of her hand and is like,
Fuck you, Brad.
Brad, if you ever call Jenna again, I'll showing up instead. And then he hangs up on her. And Jenna's like, what the hell? And tells Damon that Brad was one of the candidates for the law firm stuff that she was trying to do. And basically she says, like, just because we got married doesn't mean my IQ dropped 60 points. And Damon is like, Brad's gonna be involved over my dead body. And then he just grabs Jenna and kisses her. And we are now at almost exactly halfway through this book. They have kissed twice now. The first 100+ pages have them just being sad they broke up, basically, followed by Knott's little clues that Chloe was actually not going to be attending this wedding, and she at no point had ever intended on attending this wedding, and she was planning to make Jenna do it this entire time. Don't forget how brooding Damon has been, broodingly all over the place.
Now you can stop with all the sulking and the brooding.
Every single reminder that Jenna is a hot girl and goes to the gym, and she can have every single guy she wants, but Damon apparently. That's basically all this book has been about. We're on page 108 out of 216. We're literally halfway. Jenna and Damon start making out, and they're actually like undressing each other, like after the whole thing about how strictly contract business, no intimacy marriage arrangement. They're making out. It's like the wedding after party. And the book literally says heat seared straight to her loins. I read a lot of romance books. All right. I read so many romance books. I have never read a book that unironically used the word loins. I was fucking stunned when this happened. I didn't even know. This book came out in 2022. This book is post-pandemic, and it uses the words loins unironically.
Hey Rich, do you mind if I heat this up on your loin?
The book has also the book says they made love or are making love 4 times in the span of 2 pages. Regardless of my distaste for that word.
I hate it so much.
Basically, Damon and Jenna end up doing it on the couch. And they start boning, and then, like, mid-scene, it fades to black, and it cuts to the next morning. Or actually, I think it cuts to later. That is such a weird way to do that. You wrote them in the middle of it, and then you faded it out partway through to finish the scene. Like, you're just afraid of the ending? I don't know. It's weird. Minutes later, they're laying on the couch, and Damon is like, oh man, we didn't use protection. And Jenna's like, oh, it's fine. This is the first time we've ever made love without protection, but the chances are I won't get pregnant anyway. She's literally pregnant. I'm calling her right fucking now. She's pregnant. They would not bring this up if she wasn't. And then Jenna is like, whatever, if I'm pregnant, I can just take care of it. And Damon is like really salty about this idea because, like, if she's pregnant, it changes the marriage contract. I don't know. Damon, if you're gonna be so mad about it, why didn't you use a condom? That's like... just... I hate these kinds of plots. I hate these plots so much. They're so annoying. Jenna announces that there's gonna be no more making love unless they use protection.
Please stop talking. Okay.
Jenna goes back to her room, and at the end of the night, Damon is in his room trying to, like, sort through all of his feelings, and the storm keeps getting worse and worse, and the window actually takes a big hit from a branch from a big oak tree and cracks. And it kind of sounds like the lodge roof is being ripped up, so everybody has to leave the lodge to go stay in the cabins instead. There are 8 people staying in the lodge, including the catering staff and everything. So Damon and Jenna are going to be sharing a cabin while everybody else gets split into the other 2 cabins.
Alright, so there's only 1 bed and there's 4 guys.
I don't know why. Actually, thinking about it now, I don't know why this had to happen in the first place. Because, like, it seemed like it was building up to a, oh, we're snowed in, or rained in this case, like, forced proximity situation. And I love those kind of tropes, but... it just didn't go anywhere. Damon and Jenna go into their cabin, which is quote-unquote coincidentally the honeymoon suite that Jenna was preparing earlier. When they're in there, Jenna basically immediately starts giving Damon shit, and she reveals that she's been stalking him since they broke up. And she starts making Damon account for every single woman he's been out with since they split up, including that woman that basically was his first intended contract wife, his engagement to Chloe, every single woman, every single, like, lady he went on a business dinner with, she makes him account for all of them. And they start making out anyway, and Damon is giving her a list of reasons why he's been seeing other women, like business meetings or whatever, just like nothing important. But I guess Jenna, God forbid he go on a dinner date with somebody when they're broken up, I guess. I don't know.
We were on a break!
And it turns out there are a bunch of different Harlequin... I knew there was a lot of different Harlequin lines. And I knew each one had, like, a quote-unquote thing going on. But Desire is not their spicy line. I thought it was. Harlequin Blaze... and then Harlequin Dare are both, they're like erotica lines, I guess. Harlequin Desire is about wealthy and successful American protagonist-focused titles. So, like, just, it's your CEOs, your oilmen, your fucking billionaires. That's way more boring. The ones I'm interested in are, like, Harlequin Historical, Harlequin, where'd it go? Harlequin Nocturne, which is their paranormal line, I think is pretty cool. Except, I guess Zombie Moon was not pretty cool, and that one was in their Nocturne line, so who knows. Alas. Despite the fact that Jenna insists she could not be pregnant, she wakes up in the morning, and the first thing she does is pat her tummy and reflect on how crazy it could be that she could actually be pregnant right now. And how having a baby together would be so crazy. And then she spends like 2 pages 2 whole pages reflecting on what would happen if she did happen to be pregnant, and then she decides that she's gonna make sure everybody knows that she married Damon, and she's gonna publish their wedding photos on her blog. She showers, and then Damon comes into the cabin. He left to go check on the lodge, make sure it didn't like blow over in the middle of the night, and she describes him as looking broodingly handsome.
Stop brooding.
That's broodingly number 4. They get picked up by a helicopter, and Jenna is thinking that she's gonna have to go no sex at all if she's gonna make this real relationship work with Damon. And then with a handful of paragraphs, they're flown out in a helicopter and then on Damon's private jet flying back to Houston. So like I said, like the whole snowed in cabin thing like felt so pointless. I don't know why it needed to be a point when it like went to nothing. They didn't even do the tropes. All right, I'm gonna read some paragraphs that like I made note of these because they were so annoying. An hour later, they landed in Houston, which was now mostly sunny, with just a few moody clouds in the sky. After walking down onto the tarmac and collecting their luggage, she informed Damon that she needed to change her clothes. He gave her one of those remote alpha looks, like as they stepped into the terminal, as if she'd suddenly just spoken in tongues or landed from Mars. And Damon says, "Why do you need to change? You look fine." "I look fine for ransom," she corrected, being careful to avoid direct exposure to his gaze, which had the effect of making her want to take her clothes off. "This is Houston. People know me here. If she got snapped looking like a refugee from a disaster zone, it would be all over social media sites in seconds." His brows jerked together. "We'll be in a vehicle in 2 minutes flat. No one will see you." She gave him a considering look. "You can see me, and it's a fact that you never know who you'll run into at airports." She couldn't count the times she'd crossed paths with someone that she knew, or a reporter or a blogger who knew her. Minutes later, she spied a ladies' room. Turning on her heel, she made a beeline for it. She was almost there when she realized that she had forgotten to collect her bag from Damon. She turned around and almost ended up colliding with him. She stepped back, suddenly breathless, because now he had his badass look on, the one that made her want to rip his clothes off. He handed her the bag. "You might need this." She might need a whole lot of things, but she would take the bag for now. Once she was in the ladies' room, she found an empty stall and swapped out her jersey and boots, which were now way too hot. The only uncreased piece of daywear she had in her bag was a silky white cotton shirt that sounded cheap but always looked stylish. Shrugging into her shirt, she buttoned up over the silk camisole she was wearing, making sure to give the merest shadow of cleavage. Just because they weren't having sex for a while didn't mean that Damon shouldn't see what he was missing out on. She slipped on a pair of strappy shoes. Luckily, they were white, so she was very coordinated. Stepping up to the vanity, she freshened up her makeup, making sure to give herself the sex goddess eyes and give herself another spritz of perfume. Her hair looked good in its tousled knot, so she left it that way. It went without saying that her diamond studs looked perfect. That's what I've been dealing with. In Houston, they encounter the gossip columnist that Jenna leaked the details of their last relationship to, asking Damon questions as Jenna comes out of the washroom from changing out of her stinky peasant clothes. Damon isn't saying anything, so Jenna just goes ahead and tells the gossip columnist that they're married, and the gossip columnist asks whether or not they had a contract/sham marriage, and Jenna is like, "No, we've known each other for like 10 years. And then they just walk away. Like, Jenna gets mad that Damon didn't tell the gossip columnist that they were married. And he's like, "I don't like sharing the details of my life with the public." But Jenna's like mad. Why didn't he own up to their fake contract marriage? Even if it's only gonna even if it's only gonna last like 2 months, he should have said something. Even though he wants it to be a secret, he should have defended her. Jenna goes back to the apartment and they pack her things and then they also make out, but Jenna is like super determined to not bang him anymore because it bypasses the whole "he needs to court me" thing that she's got going on. Then they head to Damon's house together and she notices that he has a brand new SUV in his garage that is identical to the SUV that she crashed in the ditch that she left behind because it was like totaled. Because she
crashed it into a ditch.
Jenna says that he needs to return that SUV because she doesn't want it, and Damon says that it's a gift, and Jenna points out that gifts go against their marriage contract. Damon and her argue a little bit, but they're interrupted by Damon's housekeeper Consuelo, which, like, does that seem like a stereotypical name to anybody else? That kind of, like, made me feel weird. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. Consuelo, I don't know. Jenna goes up to her room, which is on the opposite side of the house from Damon, because that's part of the marriage contract. Also, the room has definitely been outfitted for someone else who isn't her, because everything is apparently decorated so impersonal. They go their separate ways, and Jenna checks the gossip columns, and she finds the headline about her and Damon, and the fact that Damon was marrying Chloe, and instead Chloe backed out, so he had to settle for second best. Jenna's like, I'll show them.
I'll show them all how tough I am.
And then makes a bunch of blog posts showing off all of her wedding stuff. And mentions how she's marrying an old flame. This actually, I think this is like the only time this comes up. This is never a conflict later. Just like this one brief, like, I'll show them we're married. And then that's the end of the whole thing. Jenna goes down to dinner at her allotted time slot, and then Damon shows up. He's breaking the rules of their contract immediately. They sit down together to eat, and then, like, she ends up leaving early because he pisses her off. I can't remember why. Eventually, she gets changed for bed, and then Damon shows up at her door looking all rugged and handsome and sexy.
Rugged handsomeness.
And he lets himself into her room, even though she keeps insisting they do not have sex anymore. They end up doing it anyway. Time skip to 4 days later. Another time skip. Damon wakes up alone again. He thinks about how he and Jenna have had a long relationship talk lately, and she told him that his communication skills were non-existent and that his gift-giving ratio was terrible. Even though he just bought her a brand new SUV to drive because her last one was still in the ditch, she demanded he return it. And she's like, he doesn't buy me any presents.
Are you fake crying?
Damon, in his narration, this was something. Damon, in his narration, he goes, transitioning from an alpha to a beta wasn't gonna be easy.
Hardworking, alpha male.
And that, like, apparently he eats too much meat, which can cause hypertension, and Jenna doesn't like it, but betas eat quinoa and blueberries and had emotional intelligence. Betas are nicer and live longer.
If you're good enough at being a beta, then the alpha takes mercy on you and ends up giving you what you want.
So Damon needs to get on board. Like, what the fuck?
There is a bigger picture here than the beta way of life.
And then also, there's a broodingly in there somewhere. I just have noted down broodingly number 5.
He's dark and he's brooding.
He might be transitioning into a beta, but he still has his alpha instincts.
Beta is no alpha.
Like, what the fuck is happening? This is the first time this whole alpha beta thing has come up, and we're like 3/4 of the way into the book. It's so dumb. Damon and Caleb have a phone conversation, and he knows Chloe is now pregnant, and they're together officially. Damon and Caleb talk for a bit. Caleb mentions that he's gonna go buy things for Chloe because it's my fault she's pregnant. Caleb tells Damon that he needs to go buy wedding rings because otherwise it means that he's not generous and he doesn't love her, and it also means that they won't bang without rings. Like, what? Where did they come from? I don't know where that connection is coming from, but fuck it, whatever, I don't know. Cut to Damon driving through the city determined to buy Jenna a ring. He goes into the office and he talks to the lodge manager, who is like, hey, by the way, that lawyer Brad called looking for Jenna a few days ago, but he couldn't get a hold of her. It must have been when you were on the flight to Houston. And Damon describes the news that Brad called Jenna as taking him out of his beta mode.
If you want to beat an alpha, you have to be an alpha.
So Damon calls his detective friend, who is like, I need to go check up on this Brad guy. And the detective is like, oh yeah, the one who was with Jenna? Like, what the how does he know that? All right, fine, whatever. I've stopped caring. We're just blazing through this now. The detective congratulates him on his marriage to Jenna, and then mentions that Brad is also reportedly involved with scamming old people out of their hedge funds and has a reputation for sleeping with married women.
Fuck you, Brad.
Apparently this guy just knows Brad. I don't know. Cut to Jenna in her office. She walks in to find 7 bouquets of expensive scented roses. And then Jenna cries because it's just so sweet of Damon to buy her flowers. And it's the first time he's ever given her a gift in any of their 3 relationships. And that SUV definitely doesn't count. And then Damon calls and is like, we're going to go buy some wedding rings. When do you have a gap in your schedule? They go to an expensive mall together to buy rings. And Damon is like, I'm buying them. And Jenna is like, Jenna, quote unquote, has to digest the switch from alpha to beta. I don't know why this is a thing now. I don't know. This just came up now and is terrible. They have an appointment to buy the rings together, and Damon goes for the most expensive ones, obviously. Jenna balks at the idea that they're getting an engagement ring, and she's like, I thought we were just getting the wedding bands. And Damon's like, well, we gotta get an engagement ring to match too. He wants everybody to know that she's his, which is also why Jenna wants to get the rings, because she wants everybody to know that Damon is married. And here's another quote. It's a little easier. I figured out I could copy and paste, or clip and like paste images of my book into my script, basically. So it'll be a little bit easier for me to like put these quotes in here now. Damon was claiming her again, his words blunt, declarative, and definitely alpha. Despite the fact that there was nothing PC about them, they sent a sharp electrical thrill down Jenna's spine. What? What? I don't even know what to say about this.
Damon, this is literally so crazy.
PC? There was nothing PC about his words? Excuse me?
Is that in the politically correct handbook?
And then Jenna cries over the fact that he wants to get her a ring.
Are your feet crying?
Jenna smells salmon canapes that were put down for them to snack on, but she wants to vom. She remembers that she might be pregnant. Damon buys Jenna the biggest, most expensive ring in the store, and then she cries again. A few days later, Jenna is back at the expensive ring store with some clients, and she gets a message from Brad, who wants to meet up. She makes an appointment to meet with him for a few minutes in front of the Tiffany's for some reason, and then she's given a glass of champagne, but she has no intention of drinking it, because don't forget, she might be pregnant. One sniff of the champagne, and Jenna runs to the bathroom to throw up. Jenna leaves the appointment and runs to get a test, and then she goes home and takes it, and yeah, she's pregnant. Big surprise. She goes out to meet Brad and stops to browse the baby clothes and thinks that Damon is going to be such a good father because of all of his alpha instincts, and he's definitely not going to end their marriage now. Damon gets a call from his detective friend that Brad is in town and he has a meetup with Jenna. And rumor has it that he's trying to take over Jenna's family's law firm by marrying her. So clearly they're going to go to Tiffany's and buy an engagement ring for Jenna.
Fuck you, Brad.
Brad and Jenna meet up and he reveals like his big villain plan. Like he just blurts it all out. He's like, he's going to marry Jenna to use her name and reputation and the fact that her dad was the governor to run for office next year. Like he just blurts this all out for no reason. Even though she's literally married. And he acknowledges this fact. She is literally married to Damon. He's like, well, we'll get married. Damon shows up and he gets mad and he accuses Jenna of meeting up with Brad so that she could marry Brad instead. And then Jenna realizes that Brad knew he was being followed by a detective, and that's why he chose to meet in front of the Tiffany's for maximum suspicion.
Fuck you, Brad.
And then Jenna yells at Damon that the entire wedding was his idea in the first place, and the only reason she married him was because she wanted to believe that they could be real one day, and she storms off to throw up in the bathroom at the mall. And some lady just walks by and is like, oh, I see you're pregnant, because that's what random ladies in the bathroom do to I guess. I don't know. She's like 3 weeks pregnant. You can't even see that yet. Like, I don't know. Jenna goes home and she packs all of her shit and she heads back to her mom's abandoned ranch or something, and then Damon has a revelation that Jenna actually loves him and she wants to be with him and has obviously not been interested in anyone but him for the last 7 years. So obviously, why would she be interested in Brad? And he should have just trusted her. Why didn't he trust her? She rushes off to the airport to declare that he runs off to the airport to declare his love for Jenna, but he misses her flight out of the state or whatever. So he's got to go chase her down, and he wants to tell her that he wants to be for realsies married now. Damon shows up at the ranch house the next morning and comes in to tell Jenna that he loves her and that he's always loved her and he's wanted to be with her for 10 years. Jenna says that she loves him and she has loved him since she was 19 years old and she's been waiting for him for so long. Damon says he wants her to be for realsies married, and Jenna says, I'm pregnant. And Damon says, I know. I found the test in the garbage in the bathroom. And then he says he wants to be with her and their baby, and they both say, I love you. And then he proposes again for realsies this time, and he puts her engagement ring back on her finger because she took it off when she left. Jenna and Damon get married within a few weeks, properly this time, and he buys her nice jewelry to wear just for the wedding ceremony, and everything is perfect, and they have no more issues ever again. They're gonna have a baby together. The end.
And they lived happily ever after.
I did not have fun reading this book. Normally I can get through a book and I can have an okay time reading it, even if it's not peak literature. I love weird romances. I love short romances or funny ones. I'm not picky. I'll read whatever you put in front of me. This one I had a really hard time getting through. I started this at the end of my last Harlequin video, and I read a few chapters, and then I did my October to November roundup books instead. I came back and I powered through because I was gonna have to get through this eventually. I had a lot of issues with the way this book was written, between the constant mentions of Damon being brooding. Broodingly came up like 5 times throughout the book, but I might have skimmed past them. I might have missed them. Who knows? And how often Jenna was mentioned to be a former cheerleader. How often they talk about how rich and expensive their lifestyles are. And I was so put off by the insistence that Jenna needed a wedding ring for their fake wedding because it was barbaric to not have a wedding ring for their fake wedding. It took half of the book just to get up to their fake wedding in the first place, and then at the fake wedding, she gets pregnant. Like, of course. Anybody with, like, 2 brain cells can see what is happening the moment it happens. The way that Jenna and Damon treat each other, just, like, straight up, is so weird. They're on and off again, but they're also refusing to mention that they have feelings for each other. They're also, like, obsessed with each other. Damon is possessive and interrupts all of her phone calls with Brad one way or another. He basically has her tracked by a private investigator, while Jenna, like, makes Damon account point by point down a list every woman he has seen or interacted with since their most recent breakup. Between the recent breakup to the fake marriage, he has to count for everybody. They deserve each other, and not in a good way. The whole alpha beta thing was so fucking weird. Like, it didn't become an issue until the last third of the book, where they made references to how Damon was trying to be a beta, not an alpha now, by doing things like buying her gifts, being emotionally intelligent, and eating quinoa and blueberries, because apparently that's what he's supposed to do now. But he has such a hard time just being a beta because he has such an alpha mindset. And then, like, after that, it never comes up ever again. It doesn't get mentioned at all in, like, the last plot arc of the book. It's so weird. He has to buy her wedding rings because otherwise it means he's not a generous person, was also so random and weird. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain the way this book made me feel. It wasn't good. And I will just, like, straight up, that book was not good. I guess, like, I was kind of surprised there was no mentions of, like, God, I guess. It avoided that, which is something I will give it. Considering the dedication at the front of the book was a religious quote, and dedicating the book to Jesus, like, I thought there was going to be Jesus in this book, and I was, like, concerned about it. But there wasn't. I'll give it that. I ended up giving this book 1 star. Sometimes you can usually find, like, redeeming qualities about these books. I couldn't for this one. The tropes didn't really work. Like, the characters were insufferable. The writing was not good. The plot was predictable and just, like, cookie cutter. I don't know. Just not good. I'm stunned by I'm stunned. 1 star. As far as, like, spiciness goes, none spicy. There's none spicy. There's 1 pepper. They have sex, but it fades out mid-scene, and there's, like, 2 more instances of them banging in the book, and both of them fade out to black before anything happens, and it skips to days later. There's nothing in this book that's spicy. I shouldn't have been surprised when there's a Jesus dedication at the front of this book, honestly. I don't know what I was expecting. Tropes in this book would be marriage of convenience, second chance romance, university sweethearts, surprise baby, alpha hero, quarterback cheerleader. They're all meh. I love, like, it even went for, like, the snowed in. There was a snowed in trope, and they didn't even do it. Like, stormed in, rained in, snowed in, whatever. Just forced proximity, I guess. Didn't do anything. They, like, went to the cabin, they went to bed, and then they woke up in the morning and it was over. Like, there was nothing about that that was fun. Alright, in conclusion, I guess I just want to say that, like, not all Harlequins are bad. I get equating Harlequin novels as a genre to being bad is like saying that, oh, any book that's indie Amazon published is a bad book, because all indie books are just like, anybody can publish an indie book, basically. Like, yeah, there's a lot of stinkers out there, but you can say that about any genre. I don't think Harlequin is like especially bad when compared to others. At least like these Harlequin books, as opposed to many indie Amazon books, are like edited properly. Usually, they're usually edited. I don't know. They're not offensive most of the time. The point of this whole series that I'm doing is like to find the diamonds in the rough out there. I know they're out there. Butterfly Swords was good. I liked Butterfly Swords. Like that was a good book. I'm looking forward to the rest of the books in the series. I know they're out there. I'm just trying to find them. This one, however, this book was coal. This was not a diamond. Opposite of diamond. For the next book I'm going to do, I actually picked it myself. This is a book that my dear friend has given to me and has said I should read. And I'm gonna do it. This is actually called Sparhawk's Angel. It's not actually a Harlequin novel. It's by Mills and Boon, but it's basically the same thing. I don't even know if Mills and Boon is still a thing. I don't know. Regardless, same kind of thing. Quick published, short books, romance books, serialized. This one's called Sparhawk's Angel by Miranda Jarrett. America, 1779. Having a bossy angel watching out for you was a pain, especially when she was determined to push her very much alive little sister in front of you at every turn. For, unlike her late older sibling, Miss Rose Everard is actually quite intriguing, and Nick Sparhawk had never found it easy to avoid temptation. That's it. That's actually all it says. It's one paragraph. Alright. So, yeah. We're gonna read this one next time. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy my suffering, leave a comment, a like, subscribe. Check out the other books on my channel. There's a lot more suffering. If you're interested, I have another video where I talked about all those books that I read between October and November. I'm hoping to do those maybe once every month or every other month. We'll see. I'm not gonna promise that this next Harlequin Wheel book is gonna be out in a month. It could take me more than that to read it. Honestly, I'm not gonna hold myself to a timeline, because my desire to read is fickle. And I get through it when I get through it, so I'm not gonna push it. It will be out though. Hopefully within a month or two. But in the meantime, I have other videos on the channel. I'll have more of my book roundups you can check out if you want to. And I play a lot of video games. If you want to catch up to me on other socials or check my Discord, there's a link for my link tree in the bottom. You can find everything down there. And thank you guys for being here. I always appreciate it. Have a good day. Bye!